Imagine a sudden shock to the supply of oil in a country. It will have massive disruptions from transportation to industries and will skyrocket the price of oil. Something similar happened in 1973, right in the middle of a war called the Yom Kippur War. This war involved Israel against a coalition of Arab states headed by Egypt and Syria. During this war, several Arab oil producing countries decided to use oil as a weapon. The US and some other Western countries were supporting Israel. So, oil producing Arab states stopped selling oil to the United States and the other Western countries which were involved. This was a political move. The Arab states wanted to pressurize the Western countries, including the United States, to change their support for Israel. The impact was immediate and severe. Gas prices skyrocketed in the USA and these Western countries. People waited in long lines for hours just to fill up their tanks. The US economy suffered a major blow. This event was a wake-up call to the US. It showed to the US how vulnerable it was to oil supply disruptions. Hence, as a result, the US government decided to create an emergency oil reserve. It's called the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, or the SPR.
The US built massive underground oil storage facilities like giant oil banks. The idea was simple. If there's another oil crisis, they have enough oil to keep the country running. In 2022, for example, the US had to tap into the strategic petroleum reserves. This was due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the rising inflation that was caused by it. Other countries after USA also recognized the importance of strategic reserves. China, for example, has a large reserve, reportedly, though they do not publish the figures. Japan also maintains a large oil reserve, which is enough to cover many months of imports. Even India has developed strategic crude oil reserves to protect against supply chain disruptions. This is at Mangalore, Padur and Visakhapatnam, which stores over 5 million tons of oil. These reserves are crucial for energy security. They help stabilize the prices and help ensure a reliable supply. But now we are seeing the same concept being applied to Bitcoin. So let us now see what is happening with Trump's executive order of making Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. So for years, crypto was under attack. The US government cracked down on big players in the crypto industry space. There were lawsuits, regulations, and bans. It was not a very good time for the industry. The SEC, which is the Securities Exchange Commission in the USA, had filed lawsuits and regulations against several crypto companies, including, for example, Uniswap, Robinhood, Coinbase. But then came Donald Trump. So unlike his opponents, he was surrounded by crypto supporters and crypto advocates and crypto investors, including Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and the other top industry leaders. Reports even say that these crypto investors poured in millions in his election campaign, and now their guy is in charge. So finally, on March 6, 2025, Donald Trump made history. He signed an order to make a strategic reserve of cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, XRP, Cardano. So the idea was simple. The US government used to seize and seizes bitcoins and cryptocurrencies from criminals and wrongdoers. So in the past, what used to happen that the US government sold it off for cash. The cryptocurrencies, they sold it off for cash, but not anymore. Trump says that the government will hold on to its crypto assets. So Mr. Trump suggested that if the Bitcoin's price rises, then the US government will use it by selling it off to pay its rising national debt. According to the website Bitcoin Treasuries, which publishes data related to the crypto industry, the US government holds 198,000 bitcoins, which is worth $21 billion. Contrary to this, the US debt, when I'm publishing this video, is somewhere around $36 billion. Of course, there's a big difference between the national debt that the US government owes and the Bitcoin holding it has. So one of the questions that the experts are asking is, if the plan continues, and the US government wants to increase the stash of the Bitcoin, then how is the government planning to increase the reserve? Will the US government only stash Bitcoin which it seizes from criminals and wrongdoers? as we discussed? Or does that mean that in a pressure to increase the reserve of the bitcoins, the government will use its power to seize bitcoins from legit people also? Or will the government buy and stash bitcoin in the reserve? But then buying bitcoin also costs dollars, which then adds to the government's expenditure. Who pays for this? You and I, the taxes. Think of it. So there are so many questions like this. Think of it and let me know in the comments. What do you think? Let us also see that how this new plan or the new executive order is and will affect the price and adoption of Bitcoin. So you might think that the Trump's executive order will send the price of the Bitcoin to the moon, right? So in fact, when Trump joined office, the price of Bitcoin actually went up. But since March 6th, 2025, when Trump signed the executive order to make Bitcoin a strategic reserve, the price of Bitcoin is actually dropping. So what's going on here? Why isn't the price of Bitcoin rising? Well, here it's not only about the price of the Bitcoin, it's about the bigger picture. It is about the greater macroeconomics impacts that are in play currently. So as is correctly pointed by JP Richardson, who is the CEO of the Exodus wallet, he says it's the macro conditions that are freaking everybody out right now. So, in simple terms, people are actually not sure about Trump's policies. His decisions have been unpredictable, and hence you can see that people are actually selling their stocks. But let's talk about the bigger claim. Can Bitcoin become a full fledged reserve currency? Most of the economists and experts say a big no, at least not anytime soon. Bitcoin is still speculative, highly volatile, and not widely accepted by governments across the globe. And let's be real, as some experts say that Bitcoin will reach $1 million, not anytime soon, as per my understanding at least. But here's where things get interesting. If other countries follows Trump's lead, we could see a slow but steady rise in the price of the Bitcoin. I mean, just imagine of a scenario where China, Japan, and even the EU countries are creating their own Bitcoin reserves. Speculations are there that China is already creating its Bitcoin strategic reserve. So if that happens, that could be a game changer. So what's next? For now, I would say that it's a wait and watch game. The price of the Bitcoin is still tied to other major economies accepting Bitcoin or creating their own Bitcoin strategic reserves, or how much adoption happens from these other major economies other than the USA. And it is also dependent on how Trump's leadership is received both in the US and other global countries. Now finally, let's also see what are the potential risks, challenges of this move, and what investors should watch out for. So, a Bitcoin reserve sounds intriguing, but here's the big question. Does it even make sense? So, you see, oil reserves, they power the economy. They can fuel tanks, planes, and industries in the times of crisis. But Bitcoin, you can't use it to fuel your industries and planes. Some experts say that this is not about economic security, it is actually about control. US control. For example, Gavi, who is a financial analyst, puts it bluntly. It's not clear what a crypto reserve would serve apart from ensuring there is enough US influence over it. So they all are talking about how US is trying to influence the price and adoption of Bitcoin. There's another risk. What if the government holding Bitcoin actually makes it unstable? See, once the government backs Bitcoin as its strategic reserve, it will need to step in to make the price of Bitcoin stable at the times of crisis. For example, economist Rama Vasudevan warns that if the US commits to a Bitcoin reserve, taxpayers could end up footing the bill when things go wrong. I mean, the citizens will have to pay the taxes for the US government to buy Bitcoins. Imagine this, Bitcoin crashes and the government has to step in to rescue it. And for that, the government needs to pour in money to buy Bitcoin to make it stable. Of course, who pays for it? The citizens who are paying the taxes. And here's another concern. What if the government starts manipulating the Bitcoin's price? So with a strategic reserve, the government will hold a massive stash of Bitcoin. So that gives them the power to buy and sell at key moments, shaking the market however they want. So if you ask me as a crypto investor, what should I be watching out for? One is how much Bitcoin is actually added to the reserve. Two, will the government start regulating and controlling Bitcoin more aggressively? And three, if a crash happens, does the government step in to rescue it? or it lets the market decide. At the end of the day, this Bitcoin reserve can be revolutionary or just another political stunt. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comments if this is a right move to have more adoption for the Bitcoin. Let me know. Thanks for watching.